Welcome back to UI. Today we have a podcaster and content creator with 450K on Twitter and hosts a Big Play Reflog show on Mondays. Chris Mcneil, aka Reflog. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you doing, Anthony? Thanks for having me.
Not too bad. Thank you for stopping by. I love the show.
I appreciate that.
You guys,
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning the show every Monday night, 9 p.m. We always have a guest on, kind of talk Cleveland centric sports. So always a good time. Yesterday we had Joe Noga on from the Cleveland Guardians. He
Yeah.
covers them for Cleveland.com. So somebody who's relevant about every week and just kind of cut it up and have a good time.
Yes, the show's great. I mean, I literally can't stop watching it. I love the chemistry that you and Dave and Nick have, and Gabrielle. It really is great. One of the main ways I saw you at first was your Twitter. You are
Sure.
by far my favorite Twitter follow. It's not even close. I think I laugh about 90% of your tweets. How do you think of some of this stuff, man? I mean, is it just like I gotta know?
It's organic. I mean, it really is just living as a Browns fan, as a Cleveland fan, just, being through it all. From being a young kid following the Browns and thinking, boy, with these Bernie Kosar teams, we're going to win every year and this is going to be great. And I can't believe these other fans who are fans of teams that don't go to the playoffs every year and to the Indians in the mid 90s, to the Cavaliers, to the LeBron Cavaliers. We've lived the ups and downs, and we've had some successes. We had the 2016 Cavaliers, of course. But then we've had so many well documented failures. And I think that you either, as a fan, you either check out or you develop quite a sense of humor. And that's kind of where I guess I've gravitated towards with my Twitter account.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had Gab Gotti on yesterday. She's a big
Sure.
and she was talking about how misery creates laughter a lot of times, and you get a lot of funny things out of misery. Um, I full transparency, two out of three major Cleveland sports teams I support. The other one I don't, which is the Browns. I'm a Dolphins fan. Almost equal amount of misery on my part. So I understand the struggle. Speaking of the Browns. How many games do you think Deshaun Watson's going to start this year? Because I asked this question to a lot of people and I get a lot of different answers.
Well, I think some new things came to light today.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Times published an article that I just got done reading about an hour ago.
Yeah.
It details it now. We've talked about 22 women and we talked about 24 women. Now they're talking like 66 women in total that they know about who he seems to be having these encounters with. Now, some of them may be consensual. Most of them, it sounds like, are not, at least in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are just downright disgusting, to be honest with you. So I think that, with it hitting the New York Times and it being out there, now you got the bigwigs in New York are all going to be reading that, everybody nationally. He's trending once again on social media. Oh, sorry.
It's all good. No worries.
Um, so I think that puts a different spin on it. So when you say you've had a lot of different people give different answers, I would guess that right now, as I sit, most of those answers are probably going to be increased by a couple of games.
Mm-hmm.
I had thought we were looking at probably somewhere between 4 and 6 games, something in that range. I'm guessing he's probably out half the season, at least, at minimum. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that they suspend him the entire season.
Yeah.
I'm prepping myself for that. You see what has happened with Trevor Bauer,
Yeah.
him getting suspended and then just kind of coming down really hard on him. Despite the fact that there was he said, she said element to it. There's some, once again, disgusting things. But you have the same thing here where you got some he said, she said element to it, but then again, some really disgusting things. And I'm not going to sit here and justify anything that he did. And I fully support, some sort of a suspension for Deshaun Watson. I
Mm-hmm.
think that, I'm really disheartened right now as I sit here, having just read the article, I think the organization lied to us, and I knew that the organization was lying to us when Jimmy Haslam was up there with D on the couch, and they were saying how they had investigated this. They knew everything that was going to be coming out. That they were well aware of this, and that this is eyes wide open for them. And of course, that whole conversation about looking for an adult in the room is now going to get thrown back at him, and rightfully so. I think that they didn't do. I think they did the due diligence that allowed them to sleep at night, more or less, more
Yeah.
so than real due diligence on this. I think they were opportunists.
Mm-hmm.
They saw that they could get a quarterback who's a top 5 quarterback in this league, who's just a fantastic talent on the field, and they could get him in Cleveland under these circumstances and match him up with a team that's got a ton of talent. And I think they jumped at it. And I don't think they were honest with us. It would have been nice. I don't think you can be completely honest on that one. I wish they would. Or they'd say, hey, listen, we thought we had a team who can win now. We got a quarterback that we think could win now. This guy's got some big issues in his personal life. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem like a good dude to me. He seems at best a weird dude. And at worst, you get borderline rapist.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it rolls out with the league. I think you're probably looking at half the year to a full year right now.
Yeah. So yesterday when I was talking to Gab, we both were on the same page. We thought it was 6, and that was yesterday.
Okay.
I think mine goes up to more, maybe about 9 games, 8 games. I think half the season is appropriate. But we had a disagreement on something, and I want to get your take on this as well. So you guys still have this guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name's Baker Mayfield, and he may or may not be leaving the organization. If you guys can trade him, if you guys can, if you have to cut him. Do you think, depending on how long Deshaun has to get suspended, do you think that he suits up for the Browns for another game? Because I personally think that he will. Gabby doesn't think so. I would like to know your opinion on it.
Did you say Baker?
Yeah.
Do you think Baker plays again for the Cleveland Browns?
I think there's a point where everybody has to swallow their pride, and I think it's very clear nobody else wants him. So if you have another opportunity to play again, whether it's in the place that you bashed all summer or not, I think you're going to.
I will die on this hill. I will tell you with 100% certainty, Baker Mayfield will not play another down for the Cleveland Browns.
Ooh.
We'll see if we're right?
Mm-hmm.
But I really do not think that this divorce – I think it's a divorce, and I think it's over at this point. And I don't think they're going to rectify on either side. I think Baker's got a chip that's just going to hold him down. And I know he may be in a position where he may not be able to play anywhere for a while, but I think that he'll be willing to sit out. And I think the Browns, there's too much pride in that room as well. And there's no way that they're going to go back. And they'll just go to Brissett, I think. And I think they'll take the losses if that's what it means. I think it's definitely a step back from Baker. I think they're willing to make that sacrifice because they don't want to look like idiots any more so than what they already are. Because I think they're already in a situation they didn't envision themselves being in. And now the water's kind of the ship's taking on some water. And I think they would look at that as a big step back, even from where they're at right now.
Okay, yeah. Listen, I get both sides of the argument. I heard a great line yesterday that the only way Baker Mayfield plays in Cleveland again is if we get an USFL team. But whether or not that happens, obviously. So shifting from Browns to Guardians, you want to talk about an overperforming team. The Guardians sitting just under 500, and as we speak, are metaphorically backhanding the Texas Rangers. Talk a little bit about this team and what your expectations were going into the season compared to now.
Expectations, I think, were in line with everybody else. Pretty low for this team, right? We know we got a young team. One of the, what do they say, 5 youngest teams in the last 30 years or something like that. It's crazy. We're a lot younger than a lot of AAA teams around the league.
Yeah.
It's just wild to think about. I think going into the season, you had some goodwill of a guy like Jose Ramirez getting re-signed like he did. I think that is absolutely huge. I love to see that. He's a guy who wanted to be here, a guy who's, one of those lunch pail type of guys, just goes to work day in, day out, enjoys what he does. It's very genuine, I think, when he enters the ballpark and he goes and plays. I think that all of his emotion is very genuine, and I think that comes across, and people really connect with that. So that was good going into the season. Now, past that, you didn't know whether where we were getting much offense,
Yeah.
and that's still the case as we sit right now. You've seen all these guys. Now they're young guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be up and down, and that's what we've seen. You know, you got guys like Quan who started off like gangbusters, and now all of a sudden is can't hit a lick. He's come on a little bit here in the last couple of games, but really hasn't done a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Owen Miller up and down. You know, all of these guys from an offensive standpoint are going to go through their ups. They're going to go through their downs. You hope that they're able to find some consistency this year, but it's really a learning year. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see more out of our starting pitching. You know, Shane Bieber's starting to get a little bit more on track. You know, Plesac has gotten a little bit better, but I just want to see more leadership, I think, out of that starting rotation. But in all, you know, like you said, the team's sitting fairly well.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of games back, I think the White Sox are going to surge. I don't believe in the Twins at all.
I don't either.
I think that that's probably what it's going to look like the rest of the season. And I probably think that we're going to end the season just a few games under 500, most likely, hopefully with a lot of growth and setting ourselves up for next year. Because that's the team that we've assembled this year. We didn't come in with a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
We came in hoping that a lot of these young guys would develop, and that's what we're seeing so far. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've liked so far from this year came from the organization itself. In past years, I was very frustrated with the talent that we had in the minor leagues and not bringing them up in chances when we had them. Now this year, you see a lot of guys being brought up, you know, from Richie Palacios to Oscar Gonzalez, who's just hot as all can be right now. I think he's batting over 360. Granted, he's only had, 30, maybe 30 at bats, but still, I'm happy to see, them bringing up guys when in the past they might have kept them in the minors a little bit longer. But shifting from that, I know you're a big golfer. Reflog spelled backwards is literally golfer. What'd you think of Scotty Scheffler, the Masters?
Yeah, I tell you what a performance there. That was wild. And I was just out at the Memorial.
Mhm.
It is so great to go and attend these events and have people out there,
Mhm.
which is so cool. It's like we're getting back to golf,
Yeah.
right? We just had 4 days of just immaculate weather out there. We're not used to that at the Memorial, and it was so much fun to have just people around, people back there enjoying the game again. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Now you have that against the backdrop of all the news that came out today, right?
Yeah.
Like Dustin Johnson, and he's signing on with the Saudi League. And
Yeah.
Phil Mickelson and all of that controversy. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I thought this was going to happen. For the U.S. Open, they've already said, hey, those guys have qualified. Those guys that have, they're welcome to play. And I expected the U.S. Open to say that. I
Mhm.
expect the Open to say something similar, the British Open.
Mhm.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the PGA Championship, obviously, because and we just played that, so you're not going to have that come up again for another year. To see exactly how that's going to end up going. And then the Masters.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Masters is probably going to stick with tradition, so they're going to say those guys can play. They want the best in the world. They've prided themselves on that. But the one major I think you're going to have a sticking point with is going to be the PGA. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really an intriguing time with golf. We'll
Mhm.
see how long this lasts. I don't know. I wonder what the appetite is in the world for golf right now. Because we always think that all of our sports are just going to be beloved around the world.
Mhm.
And obviously golf grew up over in Europe and then came over here, so I understand that aspect of it. But then now it's going to the Middle East. It's basically what this league is going to be.
Yeah.
It's like, what does the appetite look like for that? And I don't know. Right now they don't have a TV deal over here. They've got basically YouTube that they're going to be running this thing until they can come up with a TV deal. So.
Mhm.
I wonder how long this is going to be able to last and sustain before they've got a foothold, and that'll be interesting to see. A guy like Dustin Johnson, I hate not being able to see him out on tour. He was always fun to watch.
Mhm.
He'd always play the Memorial every year. Be the guy, you'd set up on a hole in the landing zone, and you'd see like three balls out there,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd wonder, okay, where's the last ball? You know, if it's foursome, usually it's a threesome, so you'd see two balls out there and wonder where the third ball is, and usually he's down over the hill, like
Yeah.
another 50 yards ahead, like where nobody's hitting it. He's just an amazing
Mm-hmm.
bomber of the golf ball. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate to have a guy like that, and of course Phil being an ambassador of the game, both of those guys go. But I, on the flip side, hey, we'll see that everything changes, from year to year. All these sports change. You're looking at NIL deals at the collegiate level, down to the
Yeah.
high school level. You're looking at all kinds of changes that I never envisioned happening as quickly as they are. And the PGA's got to adapt, and they're going to have competition just like anybody else. So I just don't know if this long term is going to work out quite the way these guys think, but it's a money grab for them, so they don't necessarily care.
Yeah. I thought it was.
That for life, and to hell with how it actually ends up. I don't know that they necessarily even care that much, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting what Rickie Fowler said the other day. He was on a podcast and he said, there's a lot of money in this other league, right? He said it's very enticing. And he kind of saved himself by saying, he would never announce publicly right now what he would do. But, I found it funny that he said, that there's so much money in this other league. And he said competition breeds growth. So I think in the end, this will help out, the main tour and everything else, because I think it's going to, lead to betterment of the sport over here because of the competition that could take away their players. But that's just my personal opinion. But
and I think you could be right. The other thing is it adds some intrigue.
Yeah.
I mean, your normal Joes are wondering what the hell's going on with the PGA.
Mm-hmm.
And with Tiger now being sidelined,
Mm-hmm.
he's not playing in the U.S. Open. He's already said that he's going to try and make it back for the Open over across the pond, and we'll see what ends up happening there. But with him sidelined, you're looking for storylines, and that's what any sport is all about. Storylines. It's about individuals. It's about storylines, and for the PGA. Without Tiger, you've been struggling for a while on how to really get that. You had Tiger, you had Phil, and now with these guys kind of taking the heel turn, the Phils, the Dustin Johnsons, that could benefit the PGA eventually if these guys come back or end up coming back in any kind of Vince McMahon, like here comes Phil's music.
Yeah.
Oh my God, here's Phil's music, and he walks in. Who knows the way this thing will spin out? But maybe they end up playing a couple of events, and that could add a lot of intrigue for those events for the PGA, and also just make it more interesting for the casual golf fans. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. This can play out in a variety of ways, and I'll be interested to see.
You're a pretty good golfer yourself. 1996 golf state champ, top 10 finish, 4 over par.
That is correct. Yes, all state too.
Sorry, so you're right. My bad. All state
champion.
All state. Yeah.
Go down the list.
Speaking of just going back a little bit, what was it like to be in a sorority with Jeremy Rose? That had to have been interesting.
Jeremy Rose.
I try to do my research.
Yes. Jeremy is fantastic. Oh, God, we had a lot of fun nights. Jeremy knew how to have a good time, and in that house, he lived in the house, and he was a couple of doors down from me, and we had some good times back in the day. Had some good times. He was a little bit younger than me, but certainly he keep the pace at the parties, and was no slouch. So.
Yeah, another good time in my opinion. I'm sure you're sick of talking about it, but I had to talk about it. The 0-16 parade. I know you hear about it nonstop whenever you do interviews, but how did that come to fruition? I mean, because I remember my friends telling me about it like a while ago, because it was in 2018, 19.
Yeah, so it was the 2017. So
2017. Yeah.
2017 going into 2018. Yeah. And you're one of the ones who got it, right? There's some people who thought we were like celebrating losing, but it's completely tongue in cheek, you know. And it really grew out of the Cavs had just won the championship in 2016, right? We had a legitimate celebration and a parade for that Cavs team, and rightfully so. They bring us a championship, the first since 1964 in the city. So just huge outpouring and everything else. And And then you get to the Browns season, and you watch the Browns just kind of puking all over themselves, and you say, man, oh man, I think I put a tweet out that said something like, "This team deserves a parade," and completely tongue in cheek.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody reaches out to me. Actually, his name's Vince, and he's a writer for the Illyria Chronicle. And he said, "Hey, in the city of Cleveland for $25 in this application, you can actually have a parade." And I thought, oh, what the hell? For $25?
That's great.
So I put it in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Browns that season continued to lose. And I get a call from the city that says, "Hey, we got your application. We need you to come up. We need you to present.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have this event, right?" It's like, yeah, I guess I am. I don't know. We're halfway through the season. And so that's about the time that I put together the GoFundMe.
Mm-hmm.
I put together this GoFundMe because I need some money for security, for cleanup, for all the permits, for all that crap, right? And porta potties, all this stuff you don't even think about. So I put it on and go up to Cleveland, do my presentation. They take me seriously, which kind of surprised me, right? Like, I'm thinking they're going to shut this thing down. They're just going to think, no, this is not happening. It was not about that at all. They were just talking logistics, like, hey, what was your plan? How's this going to work? And I presented what I had, and they were giving me tips on what I need to do. And I was like, holy crap, this is actually going to happen. And then, of course, Tony Rizzo there in town, a local radio celeb, rips on the parade and goes on the air saying he's going to kill anybody who's in attendance, and under his tires and all that. Well, Dan Levitard, who's a much bigger name in the radio industry, in Florida, caught on to this and thought it was hilarious. And then he finds out about my GoFundMe. So he goes on his show and he tells all his listeners to go contribute to the GoFundMe so that the parade will actually happen, so that he can troll Tony Rizzo. So within like an hour that morning, I went from like $1,000 to like $1,500, or excuse me, like $15,000 in this account. And so now I'm sitting there going, I presented to the city. I've got $15,000. This damn parade's going to happen. Shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can.
You can. Let it fly. Let him fly.
All right, beautiful. But that was like a sinking feeling. And I'm like, well, who can save me is the Cleveland Browns themselves. If they win a ball game. Of course, they continued to lose that season.
Yeah.
Got to Christmas Eve. I went to the Christmas Eve game. And I was thinking, man, what would be better than a Christmas present of the Browns winning? That season, the Browns beat the Chargers on Christmas Eve, that blocked field goal.
Yep.
And the Browns sustained and kept that victory alive and made my Christmas. I took all that money. We donated to the Cleveland Food Bank. That was it. That was it, right? We're done with this whole stupid parade. It wraps up with a bow. I made a donation. The Browns then came out and matched my donation. So it ended up being like almost in all, this whole thing ended up being like $100,000 or something to the Cleveland Food Bank. So fantastic story.
Yeah.
I think I'm out of it. Get to the next season. We all know what happens. We started losing again. And like, I think it took to like the first quarter of the first game before people are like, hey, are those permits still good? Bless it. Here we go again. And so, fast forward, sure enough, they go 0-16. I put on the parade. It's about 0 degrees out there that morning. I don't know if you were there, but it was cold as hell.
I was in the area.
Actually got down to like -16 with wind chill. So it was 0-16, which is kind of, poetic and all. And we were led out by the morning show there, Rover's Morning Glory. They brought their bus and they let out everybody. We had all kinds of sponsors. Excedrin was out there for headache relief. They were giving away hats to everybody. We had the guy who does farmersonly.com, which used to be a dating site.
Yeah.
Advertising. We had Porta Potty out there. We had all kinds of ads, and they helped contribute money that went to all those expenses as well for that year. And then we had all kinds of floats, and we had all the fans out there. And you can still go on YouTube, and if you put in the 0-16 parade, you can still see all of this. It was fantastic. We had high school marching bands out there. We had some local bands that were pulled on trailers. We had, all the normal things you'd see in the Muni lot, all these, the Brady Bunch or the Browns bunch
Mm-hmm.
bus was out there, and all these different buses and floats, and everybody was out there, and it was really a good time. Everybody was drinking at 10 in the morning or whatever it was. It was like a tailgate,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also a protest, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people with signs like Jimmy Haslam for jail and things like that. And so the Browns themselves, it was definitely a shot across the bow at them of
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, you guys got to get this thing right.
Yeah.
We deserve better. And there were even signs that said, we deserve better. And I think that was really the message that needed to come out of that to
Mm-hmm.
the Browns. Now, whether it actually did anything, I don't know. That's still up in the air.
Yeah.
But it was very cathartic, I think, for anybody who attended that 0-16 parade. So, all in all, I thought I was going to get killed through that whole process. I ended up surviving, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Cleveland Food Bank got a lot of money, and
Yeah.
that was good. And it didn't. I don't think it put the black eye on Cleveland the way everybody was anticipating. So I think it came off fairly well. So I'm pretty proud of that too.
Yeah. So two quick things, if I can, before we get done.
Yeah.
The first one being, so I was scrolling through your Twitter followers just because you have a lot of big names that follow you, but there was one in particular that stood out that made me kind of take a second look. Ryan Reynolds follows you on Twitter. Did you how did you know this? What was your reaction to this? Because that's such a random
Ryan
one.
Reynolds and I are boys.
No.
No, so actually this is a really good story. So and somebody just sent me this. I made a meme this past season of the Browns from that Free Guy, the Free Guy movie that he did, right? Where I dressed him up, in Browns colors. He's like a Browns fan, and made it out to like that's me on a daily basis. And he's walking downtown, and there's fires and fighter jets, and everything's just exploding around him, which is kind of the life of a Browns fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I added to that picture, instead of him holding coffee, he was holding Jack Daniels. Well, he saw that on Twitter because I tagged him.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't like the fact that he was holding Jack Daniels because he has his own brand of hard alcohol, and that's Aviation Gin.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did is he sent me like a bottle of Aviation Gin. He sent me all kinds of gear from Aviation Gin. I think I've got. There you go. I've got. He sent me this patch, and he sent some other crap. It came with it, and like hats and shirts and all this stuff. And along those lines, he also followed me. And so the agreement was that when I made that meme, I had to go back in and change it, and I did. So now he's holding Aviation Gin as opposed to Jack Daniels in that picture, and I got a follow out of it. So
that's fantastic.
That was pretty wild.
The last thing before we wrap up, I mentioned it in the beginning. I love your guys' show. I think it's it's fresh. I like everybody on it. Just tell us a little bit about how that got started and how you and Dave came together and made this.
Yeah, so Dave reached out to me, and it was actually a post-game show that we started a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Dave, I said, I don't want to do any work. He said, no, you won't have to do any work. I was like, there's a lot to this, like, because you look at it, and he does a great job with all the production values very high on that show. It looks almost like an ESPN show or one of those.
It looks great, yeah.
Yeah, with scrolls and all kinds of crap all over the screen and stuff. Like, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I said, I will sit there and I'll do a show, and that's it. He's like, no problem. So he sends me the lighting. He sends me the camera. He sends me, like, the microphone and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, all right, you want to do it now? Yeah, now I'll do it. And the post-game show ended up being really popular.
Mm-hmm.
That time it was a call-in show, which was fantastic, because we get just drunk assholes after every game calling in, and they were just comical as anything, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
Either overwhelmingly happy or overwhelmingly sad. Either way, it was good time. And we decided to kind of move that to a Monday night show, add guests, and then it's taken off from there. So it's been fun. It gives me an opportunity to talk to people who I normally wouldn't talk to, right?
Yeah.
Mark Prices of the world, the Clay Matthews, the Ernest Beiners, Parachek, some of these guys who, I wouldn't otherwise interact with and really have some meaningful conversations with them. I had Justin Lauer, who's a PGA pro here 2 weeks ago, who had just earned his tour card. He's from the Cleveland area. He's actually from Akron.
Yeah.
And at that time, he wasn't in the Memorial. Well, he ended up qualifying for the Memorial after that on a sponsor's exemption. So I got to not only interview him, then watch him out there at the Memorial. So kind of cool things like that happen through the show. But yeah, thanks for asking about it. Every Monday night at 9 p.m.
Yeah, absolutely. All of Chris's links will be in the description below. Hey, thanks for stopping by today, buddy.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me, Anthony.
No problem.